Hey, budget gardeners, Vita Loca here. Join me today as we talk about wax and tuberous begonias. So let's go. You may be wondering, what is she doing with all of these begonias? Well, if you've been following my channel, I started all of these begonias from seed. In fact, I started them from seed that I collected in the fall time. And I showed you in a video how to collect your own seeds from wax and tuberous begonias. I'll be sure to put a link to that video down in the description below in case you're interested. I used to have a love-hate relationship when it came to starting begonias from seed, but I've changed my mind. I actually love starting begonias from seed. I think one of the big reasons why I didn't enjoy the process was because the seeds of tuberous and wax begonias are very, very, very small. They're almost dust-like, unless, of course, you buy the seeds. If you buy the seeds, oftentimes the seeds are pelleted. But I do like to collect my own seeds for the simple reason of I like to start a lot of my own plants and I want to have a lot of certain plants. Now, it's actually very easy to collect the seeds of a begonia plant. You're typically looking for the seed pod. It almost looks like little wings, and you want to be very careful when you collect those seed pods. And then you want to collect the seeds and then make sure you dry them before you store them. But again, they're very small. They're very fine, like dust. Begonias are one of the first plants that I start indoors. And I enjoy that process because during the cold winter months when it's still snowing outside and I'm kind of itching to do some gardening, I love starting my seeds. And begonias are a great first plant to start indoors under my LED shop lights. I'll put up on the screen the date of when I planted all of these begonia plants and also about how many weeks old the plants are, just so you have an idea of how long it takes for plants to grow from seed. And don't worry, I'll be sure to give you a close-up look at these plants as well, because there are a lot of different colors and variations and types of begonias that I started from seed this year. In my yard, I do have some patches of sun. However, a lot of my yard is part shade to shade. And because of that, that limits me a little bit with what kind of flowers I can grow in my yard. And what I've been trying to do over the last many years, and I'm still trying to hold back, is grow plants that will thrive in my yard. And given that I have a lot of shade, I know that I need to grow a lot more of shade-loving plants, which is one reason why this year I went all out and I grew a ton of impatiens from seed. And I also grew, as you can see, a ton of begonias from seed. And what I've learned is with begonias, they do well here in my full sun conditions, but they also do well in the shady areas. So it's a perfect plant for me to grow in my yard. Last year, I was definitely sad. I had planted some begonia seeds and I did have some germinate. They looked really pretty. I had them in some container pots on my side porch. And I loved them so much that I had wished I had grown more of those plants. And it was just one of those off years that I planted a lot of seeds, but I just didn't tend to the seedlings. And so I only ended up with a handful of plants for my yard. So I made a note in my spreadsheet where I keep track of all my seeds and when I start the seeds. And I put a note in there saying, start a lot of begonias from seed this year. Even though I've been growing wax begonias from seed for a few years now, tuberous begonias are something that I've never tried from seed until this year. I have a really pretty yellow tuberous begonia that I've been able to overwinter the last few years. And I honestly never knew that you could collect the seeds off a tuberous begonia. But I noticed that it was going to seed last year, and the seed pod looked very similar to the seed pod of a wax begonia. So I said, why not? Why don't I collect the seeds off of the tuberous begonia? Worst case, I wasted my time and nothing will happen. Well, lo and behold, I planted the seeds this past winter. And when I saw the little teeny tiny sprouts emerging, I was so excited. I couldn't believe that, I was able to germinate tuberous begonias from the seeds that I collected off my plant. And I still was a skeptic, though. I wasn't quite sure what the plant would look like. And well, the plant definitely looks like a tuberous begonia plant. The type of plant that if you buy the tuber and you pot it up and you can tell the difference between the leaves in a tuberous begonia versus a wax begonia. And it's quite distinct. And I can see the difference with the plants here. So I'm very excited. Now, of course, I want to see it bloom and I want to see if it creates a tuber. So those are still things that I'm waiting for, and I'm anxious to see if that will happen this year. And I'll definitely keep you posted when it comes to my tuberous begonias and how those turn out. When it comes to my wax begonias, I basically started buying some wax begonias years ago, and I saw that there were different heights. There were some taller ones and there were some shorter ones. There were different colors. There was some white, there was some pink, there was some red for the blossoms. And then I also noticed that there were ones with different leaf colors. Some of them had more of a darker colored leaf. Some had more of just a regular green colored leaf. So over the last number of years, I've specifically been on the lookout for different types of begonia plants that I can just buy a small little 6-pack for a few dollars for the main purpose of collecting the seeds off of it. And that's why at this point, I have enough variation of begonias, tall and short, different color leaves, and different colored flowers, which is super exciting. I want to know, do you grow begonias in your yard, tuberous or wax? Do you start them from seed? Have you ever started them from seed? Please drop a comment below. I'd love to know if you've ever done this process. I know that when I first started looking into growing begonias from seed and I was doing a search on the internet, there was some information out there, but not a ton, which basically prompted me to try to learn on my own and then more so share it with all of you because I just think it's such a great process. I think you can really have some beautiful flowers in your yard, especially if you love begonias. And I say grow them from seed. If you have to buy the seeds, definitely buy the seeds. But if you want to grow a lot like this, then definitely try to collect your seeds this fall and see if you can grow some of your own wax begonias or tuberous begonias from seed. And I will caution you, it's a long process. It's not terribly long, but it's definitely longer than growing cosmos from seed or marigolds from seed. I feel like those are great starter plants. If you're first starting to garden, those are easier plants to grow from seed. When you plant the seed, you see the germination occur pretty quickly, and then you have plants growing very quickly in front of your own eyes. Begonias are definitely something you're in for the long haul. So that's why I'm saying that's one of the very first plants you're going to start from seed, but it's well worth it. So at this point, I want to take you in for a closer look, and I want to talk a little bit about some of these plants and my experience with them. We're going to start with this little tray here first, and you can see that it's pretty small. It just fits, between my two hands here. And I had made videos showing you my process for starting begonias from seed, and I mass sowed them in small little containers that have drainage holes in the bottom. And the key with begonia seeds is you want to press the seeds on the top. You do not want to cover them with any sort of potting mix because they need light to germinate. I did put these on a heat mat because the bottom heat definitely helps with germinating them quicker. And I can't remember how long it took before I started seeing germination, but it must have been at least 1, if not 2 weeks. These are very small. I mean, next to my thumb, you can see that they look big, but keep in mind that they've been in here for months. I'm at a point where I think I'm done pricking plants out of here because I'm going to show you all of these plants and how much bigger they are for the simple reason that I have pricked them out a long time ago, and therefore they've grown at a very quick rate. And I could continue pricking these plants out, but honestly, I have plenty. So these are a taller variety of wax begonia, and I had written down that the blossoms are white, but honestly, now that they're blooming, I see that some of them are white and some of them are pink. So again, had I pricked these out a while ago, they would have been a much larger plant. So today is April 2nd, so keep that in mind. And I had sown these seeds on December 29th. Here's a tray, and in this tray, these are small little 6-cell packs. So the tray has at a minimum 72 plants, but there's going to be more than that because in some of the cells I have 1 or 2 plants planted. So there's definitely more than 72 plants here. Now, these are bigger than what I just showed you, and I must have pricked these out within the last probably 2 weeks or so. So they've put on a little bit of growth and they're getting fertilizer because they have their first set of true leaves. Now let me show you another tray that's slightly bigger because the plants got pricked out even before these plants had been pricked out. Okay, so here's another tray. You can see that these plants are slightly bigger, and that's because I got to these and pricked them out earlier than the last tray that I just showed you. And you can see that based on my hand, these are in just small little 6 cell packs. And this tray has 12 small 6 cell packs in it. Let's focus on this tray here. So this tray here has 2, 4, 6. So now it only has 6 trays in it, and each tray has 6 plants. That means there are 36 plants in this tray. And you can see that these are even a little bit bigger. And they're in a bigger 6 cell pack. They're taller and just in volume, they're much bigger. And yet you can see that these plants are not blooming, but they are happy being in a bigger cell. And right next door to them, no cheating, I see you looking over there. Right next door are even bigger plants. Again, it comes down to these got potted up before these did. And you see the moral of the story. Had I potted up all the plants all in the same day, they would look like these. And my average last frost date is still 6 or 7 weeks away. So it's fine. I am patient. I can wait. I'm very excited that I have some that are blooming. And then these will bloom next. And then those will bloom. And that's all good. But right now, to be honest with you, these guys really, really need to be potted up. And you can see there's a little bit of drying going on the tips of the leaves. And that happens for a few reasons. It could be that the plant dried out a little bit. It could be that the plant just needs to be potted up. And the next stop for these plants will be just a larger pot that can hold more soil. And they'll be individual pots. They will not be in these 6 cell packs. And I just want to show you close up how they look. I mean, really, really beautiful. I love them. And so this tray right here has, again, 36 plants in it. And right next door to it are plants that are almost equally the same in size. And again, there are 36 in this tray as well. And if we move this way, right there, that's another tray of 36. And those are on the smaller side. So those will catch up though in no time. So what we're looking at here are 2 restaurant to-go containers that have seedlings, and I started these seeds in early February, around February 9th, and this one still has a whole bunch of seedlings to be pricked out. And this one looks like it's dried out a few times, and I have pricked seedlings out of them. And had I pricked them all out by now, they would be much larger. Again, I'm just showing you just for reference. And based on the plastic wrap, I had written on there the colors. They are going to be dark colored leaves and pink flowers. So let me show you some of the ones that I've pricked out and what they look like. And they're much larger than these because they've been pricked out and they've been given fertilizer and they have more room. And it looks like it's a mix here. You know, you can see the difference in the color of leaves, right? You have basically the green colored ones and then the dark colored leaves. And they still are quite small, but when I say quite small, they at this point should be bumped up into those larger 6 cell packs. They would be much happier if I bumped them up at this point. And also, same with many of these, you can see that these need to be bumped up. But notice the different color of leaves. So they are a wax begonia, but they just have a different color leaf. And based on what I wrote, I believe most of them should be either a white colored flower or some of them will also be a pink colored flower. And then here's another tray of them. And again, each tray this size holds about 72 plants. So I have quite a few of this color as well, which is very exciting. Now these over here are ones that I was able to bump up. And you can see they're very happy. These must have been bumped up later. In fact, you can see a nice light pink blossom on this one. I just love the variation. I just think it's so pretty having this colored leaf, but I also think it's nice to have these green colored leaves as well. Okay, for this year, I would say that this was my pride and joy plant. I love all my plants equally. However, I am very excited about these. So they've already been bumped up, and these are 3-inch pots. And you can see next to my hand that they are doing very well. And these are my yellow colored tuberous begonias. And you can see the leaves look quite different compared to the begonias I've been showing you. By the way, I think I have a ranunculus growing in here. It's going to have to get removed. But yeah, I think this is a win. I think this is very, very exciting. And, again, the experiment will continue to see how they bloom. Hopefully they do bloom. And if they do produce a tuber for me. But they definitely look like a tuberous begonia. You can tell the difference when you compare them next to the wax begonias. So I have quite a few of these. There are about 18 of these yellow tuberous begonias in this tray. I have one more yellow tuberous begonia here. And then over here is a tuberous begonia. And I had written down that this was a red-orange colored tuberous begonia. I got it from a city that's close to me. They had a whole bunch of tuberous begonias that were putting on a beautiful display. And well, I just had to check and see if they'd gone to seed. And in fact, they had. So I collected the seeds off of those. And these are the same one that I just showed you, that red-orange tuberous begonia that I collected from the city that's close to me. And pretty soon, some of these really should get bumped up. Aren't they cute? You can see that they definitely are forming the leaves that look like a tuberous begonia. I'll just give you a close-up look at them. And I'm not worried at all about the algae growth that's on the top. I noticed that if they get dried out, they die. And I don't want my plants to die. I'd rather them be a little bit on the wet side, so just to keep them alive. Once they get to be bigger, and I put them in their 3-inch pots, they're more forgiving to being dried out. But while they're small, they really do seem to need that extra amount of water. So I'm happy to give that to them. And again, this is a tray of 72 cells. And in some cases, some of the cells have 2 plants in them. So I have plenty of tuberous begonias here, which is very exciting. I will absolutely be giving you a seedling tour of all the other plants that I have growing in my grow room. But I like making these videos where I focus on 1 or 2 types of plants because I think it's just good to give a little bit of history, a little bit of background, um, just my experience and what I've learned, and just share that with you. And I want to also give you the opportunity to drop any questions or comments that you have down below when it comes specifically to begonias, be it wax or tuberous. And if you haven't already, please consider subscribing to my YouTube channel. It really helps me out and it doesn't cost you anything. And also, if you hit the notification bell, it will let you know when I make videos, just so that you don't miss out on any of them. I will definitely keep you posted on how these begonias are doing. And I definitely want to take you along when I start planting them out in containers and also out in my landscape. I hope you've been able to get out in your gardens. I got out in my garden recently, but we have a lot of snow on the way. So guess what? I will be potting up and planting more seeds. I'm so glad I have this to do during those snowy, cold days. Until the next video, make it a great day with gardening.